thank you so much for coming on to Nexus Talks. I'm so excited because the more I was researching you, the more confused I was getting because this is so out of my industry. So I'm excited to learn from you today. And please just introduce yourself and tell me a bit more about yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Igor Tomych. I'm 38 years old. Originally, I'm from Ukraine, but at the moment, I would say I'm running the global business. So right now, my company is Dash Devs LLC, which is founded in the United States. And for almost 12 years, we're working with the different kind of clients. And nowadays, we're more focused on the fintechs. My story, I would say, is for me personally, it's kind of similar to what you expect, like as a little bit success story out there, because I've started my career path as engineer in outsourcing, and through the years, I was moving a little bit in the ladder. I started to be a project manager, or technical manager, and then in 2011, I founded my own company, which is called Dash Devs, and we started out in those days like a something really in gray zone as mobile development because no one knew how big the mobile world will become. And it was not like a really trendy stuff because everyone was saying, okay, small devices, they are not capable to deliver anything professional. And we started to serve our clients as the service of the software development. And we started to do outsourcing. We are quite focused on the quality results. And in 2017, 16, we realized that we are in fintech. We are helping companies in different regions, developing and working on their business and technical processes in the fintech. And we understood that's our like a value proposition for the clients. And from there, I think we quite focus and we're investing quite a lot of knowledge, time, resources to make sure that we're capable to deliver quality results. And it's different business models. We have like three main of them, and we helping to do the product development as outsourcing to our clients. And one of the great example there is delivering the challenger banks or fintech solutions completely from the scratch to the market.
So nothing too complicated then.
And not really, because if you engineer, you're kind of have the overview from inside, and then I would say it's not even changing the industry or the overview, but growing with understanding more from the business side. So initially, you're responsible for a really small thing in the product, but through the years, you're growing with understanding why it's important, what are the impacts of those software engineer functions that you have will have on the business. And then you're helping business to understand what are the market fits, how they can have the part of the market and do their business effectively.
Yeah. It's so interesting. You mentioned in the beginning when you were explaining everything that no one thought that mobiles or small devices would be used for anything. Who doesn't use their phone for every single aspect of their
Yeah.
life?
Yeah. And that's maybe the biggest mystery for me because we humans, they're quite interesting in understanding what was like before. Because if you think like about the technology nowadays, it's like, okay, it's been there for ages, but no, there was a definitely time in the industry where everything was done on the desktops and even notebooks have not been so popular. And nowadays you're waking up with the phone and you feel like it's something really natural for you. And I have a small example. In 2008, I had like the really first iPhone, which I bought, and there was a possibility to unlock and install applications, even if at that time Apple didn't have a store. And there was like a installer which gave an application that you can play multi-touch piano, like a short keys, and then you can play. And at that time, I was working for the guys from Netherlands, and I showed them their iPhone, and they quite in Microsoft stack. And they said, it doesn't make sense why people would need this. And I said, it's amazing. You can play piano, you can have a device which is here rendering the interface, which is different from desktops. It's going to be future. They said, no, we're not interested. It's like it's toy. It's not a product. And then a decade later, I see how the whole world has changed because of those small toys.
It's so interesting because I remember when the first iPhone came out and I was still on my like Nokia. So I loved the Nokia. It had the web browser, but I didn't use it because back then no one used the internet really when I was in school anyway. And I just remember thinking, why would you ever get an iPhone? It's big, it's clunky, it's like, what does it even do apart from the touch screen that was exciting? And now, if I left my iPhone at home or anything, I'd literally not be able to do anything, Igor. Did you ever doubt yourself?
No, I think that's one of the things which makes me a little bit different. I even knew before the university, in the school time, I was visiting the university. I was visiting the courses for the software engineer, like programming, all languages. And by that time, I already knew which degree I want to get in university. And I was planning actually, or envisioning more to run own company. So even from that time before university, not like the company, but I was thinking that that's something that I really admire as doing. And that's quite logical to work there. And all through the years, it didn't change. It's for me, it's quite natural in this way.
I love that. Most of the time when I speak with guests on this podcast, they always say to me how they somehow ended up in their field. So it's so nice to speak to someone who's like, no, I knew I wanted to do this. Of course, it's naturally progressed and you've got to the company that you wanted to form. But it's so interesting that you've always kind of known the space that you want to go into.
Yep, yep. Kind of like that.
And you've been doing huge things within the banking industry. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about Dash Devs as well.
Um, it's quite interesting because usually in the industry, you're quite focused on the end companies who are serving you. Like you can take a look on Revolut, Monzo, are the big players. And the things in the current world, they're quite complex. They cannot be produced from one company. If you like do decoupling of the applications or the services, usually they facilitate it from other products or from other services. And Dash Devs, I would say, as a maybe as a kind of secret sauce for helping fintech companies to become more successful and more result oriented through the specific times, like bootstrapping the teams, because we know quite well how the industry works, how to execute complex technical things. And this is not really obvious because I've seen quite a lot of companies who are thinking, okay, we will just hire engineers, we will give them tasks, they will execute, and we will have the things that are working. But it doesn't work this way. And we as a company helping to make sure that the tech is solving the business problems, but deliver in this specific time to make sure that the business can benefit from it. So I would say the Dash Devs and quite a lot of other engineer companies, they're helping to final client facing products or companies to deliver and make sure that we have innovations in our life because the industry is always, and even right now, it's evolving and a lot of work and decent amount of the experience is taken to make sure that this progress is moving.
Is that your biggest challenge, would you say? Keeping up with everything and knowing when it's going to change or how it's going to change?
I would say it's not a challenge because knowing what's going on, it's more as the final results. But make sure that the team is motivated, making sure that we are serving clients the best as we can, because then result the technology and the industry is changing. It's a final point. But before you need to do quite a lot of different things, how to educate, mentor people, overview what's going on, become within you better processes and overviewing the business. So it takes a lot of focus on the task that initially might not look really like the first priority, but taking care about them then gives better results. So I think making sure that you focus on the right things, it's quite important here
Yeah,
and the biggest challenge.
that's really refreshing to hear. And you mentioned earlier on that you're from Ukraine. When you started this
Yes.
company, were you originally in Ukraine? Were your team in Ukraine? Or
Um, we have the headquarters in Wilmington, United States, in Delaware. In 2011, I spent certain time in States, so I've been splitting the time between Ukraine and United States. That's why I started the company. But overall, we had quite a lot of engineering power in Ukraine. So in Kharkiv, that's the second largest city in Ukraine, we had seventh floor building, which is capacity like 150
Wow.
employees. It was huge. And during the COVID, even a little bit before, we become quite digital, that it's not limiting where you're working from. So we have the office in Wilmington, we have sales office in London, and we had office in Kharkiv, which we had to close because it's not safe to work from there. And right now we have two offices in Kiev and Lviv. And most of our employees, they're working remotely. So they have a capability or possibility to go to co-working centers and work from there. And yes, it was challenging to make sure that people are safe, move them to safer areas, but we managed well this as a company, and that's how it is right now.
Yeah. How or what is your favorite tool to use to kind of unite all the communication? Because it sounds like you've got people everywhere, and how I think that's the hardest part. I mean, I work in a small company with about 50 people, and communication can be really difficult. So tell me a bit more about how you utilize your communication skills.
I think it comes from the cultural thing, more like what is the company culture? Because it's not about the tooling, it's how we hiring, how we're making sure that the correct people are working with us and they keeping the same level of communication. So for us, like our value is result orientation. So in this case, we understand and we have really good top management, middle management. They're understanding what are the functions. We have a lot of things that we've done in the past, which gives us the ability to make sure that the whole company, we have proper structure with the proper functions, position profiles. Like if you take any position in the company, you have the position profile, which you can open and understand what are the key competences that you have as employee that gives you an ability to execute your work and what are the zones of responsibility. It helps a lot, but is that's the tool, but understanding that should be there, it's cultural, like company culture. And we've been building this for quite a lot of time, like for 3, 4 years now. And it took decent amount of time to realize that it's quite important. And coming from engineering part, uh, especially made it difficult for me because you always think, okay, there is certain management which might be not even necessary because as engineer, I can produce this stuff. But the more experience with the processes you become, you start to understand that certain things they might be implemented from, but they essentially need it. And this like this cultural fit. And after that, we are helping to be more efficient for our employees. And we're using Slack for the communication. The benefits, I think, it's a different messenger. So you can close and you are not working anymore, which is, I think, focus during the work is required. And then you should focus on your own things when the business day is finished. We're using quite a lot from engineering approaches. We're using Atlassian products as Jira project management and Confluence. Especially, I would say about myself, I'm quite document driven. So if you would like to really make sure that other people understand what you would like, then put it in the text. If you can express with the text, then your thoughts are not well organized. So instead of
I
having
like
meetings,
that.
put certain things in text, read it, make sure that other person can understand and then share. Maybe you will have a meeting explanation, but the logic should be something that you can share without having everyday meetings, talks, and then no one really understand what are the end results that are required from there.
I really like that perspective. Put it in a guide, and if you can't, then it's not good.
Yeah, not good enough to use.
I like that. I like that a lot. And employees aside, and obviously the business aside, if we're talking about the financial institutions that you've worked with, for anyone who listens to this and is looking to build relationships within the financial industry, what would you advise and what are the biggest challenges for you in that aspect as well? Or were they? Because obviously you're established now.
I would say it's two parts. Be hungry with the results because the if you compare to other industries, there is a high level like a threshold to come in because there are quite a lot of big companies who are almost usually a monopoly on the market. Because if you have the licensing, then you just cannot start a business and run the bank. First, you need to acquire, I don't know, in UK, email license, which also requires certain level of understanding funding, which makes it harder. That's why the market not always really oriented on the results because you're a monopolist. You have the market, which is not changing a lot, which is different in other industries, especially in digital products. If you compare like social networks, you can lose everything in one day and people are moving from one thing to another one, which is different with money because you build in the trust. And then after you gain the trust as an institution, then people would not move to another new fancy startup because it's all about the money. Fancy doesn't mean that it's safe for your money. That's first thing. And the second one, try to be really innovative because in this case, a lot of things they communicated, but then if you go and try dive deep into the end results, like a lot of banks are talking about the innovations, but like really good example, I was working with the United States banks and using applications as customers. And for me, it's really fascinates that you didn't have a proper transfer functionality in their mobile applications until 2018, something like that. It's like in Europe, everyone is sending money with the mobile application from your account to P2P. And then in the United States, you're rather do the phone call to the bank or you go to the branch. And it's like, come on, it's possible. And banks are talking a lot about innovations, but taking a look into your business process. What are the customers that they're looking for? Are they willing to come to the branch for doing the transfers? And okay. So
I'm so sorry.
it
My cat's come out of
no, no,
nowhere.
no worries, no worries. It's still, it's nice. So I would say that seeing the real results and estimating the real results rather than the communication or marketing, because in this communication, you might have a feeling that you are innovating, but what are you doing for real?
It's true because even here, for example, for a very long time, people don't go to the bank unless you're depositing cash. There's nothing you can do in a bank anymore, even mortgages, loans, everything is through the app. And I find that crazy that America lagged on that actually.
Yeah, yeah. There was like a really visible lag between what is possible in other countries and in the United States. And a really small bug with specific banking app that I was using a lot. It's like a type in the amount they increased the functionality for sending the transfers. And then you have the keyboard with the numbers that you type in the amount that you would like to send. And you type in like a usual iPhone application, click, 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 really fast. And then since it's a hybrid solution, it just types the first digit and all others are missed. And then okay, I need to be slower 10 times. And then you 1, 2, 3. And it shows that, okay, you have budgets, you have marketing, but go and use your application yourself, see if it works. And I would assume that most of the people who was estimating and approving the results, they really didn't use this application on everyday basis.
Do you ever feel like when you're working with certain companies that you're like banging your head against a wall trying to communicate an idea and or is it usually do they really like respect your perspectives or have you ever been in scenarios where you just don't get each other?
That happens. We're humans. That's okay. But I think for me, it's quite important to understand the motives because if there is no motive to do the final results, then you will be banging to the wall. But for me, if I see that there is a demand and we can help, then it's more it takes you the experience and instruments to talk and explain. You can go and explain because certain things from technical and product perspective, they can be quite abstract. Like you cannot really show the applications because they run in the cloud. There is a code which is compiled and then delivered, and you can show the code, but no one will understand what for real it takes or what is it. And then if you have really good ability to explain things, I really like Feynman. There is a really famous guy who was in Project Manhattan, and he's saying if you cannot explain the thing to 5 years old kid, then you don't understand it. So my approach is simplify as much as you can And if you can explain, then other person will understand because you have the same motive to get the things done. Okay, I'm an expert. I know complex things and I know how to make sure that complicated things are delivered, but it takes my responsibility to simplify, explain, and make sure that we're talking about the same things, which enables our decision making or result orientation together.
I really like that perspective, Igor, because I think that's what scares people on trying new things as well, just outside of fintech in any aspect of life. When you don't understand it, you don't want to touch it or go near it because it doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I really like that. I really like that. And one thing I was going to say is that integration with fintech vendors seems to be a significant part of your work. So, can you explain to a 5-year-old, aka me, how you get what the process of integrating multiple fintech vendors into a product looks like?
Uh, it's quite simple. It's a process of doing something in a group. And if we would like to make, I don't know, a complex sandwich, it means that everyone, we have a specific functions that each person is responsible for. Someone is bringing the bread, another person is taking the pasta or whatever, jelly, and then we're making peanut butter jelly, the sandwich. And we're splitting the responsibilities. And if you can envision in really detailed way what you would like to get, then you can see what are the ingredients that you need. And that's how you are selecting the vendors. I need the best bread, which is available in the market. And I'm going to, and that's kind of the complication there, but let's keep it. You're selecting from different breads and making sure, okay, this white bread works for me. Then someone is bringing the peanut butter, someone bringing his jelly, and we're putting it together and we have something new on the market. So it's really fun to make sandwiches. And
Love that.
thanks.
I love
And
that.
the complication is that I see right now, it's not about the process of like creating fintechs, but really have the real information about the vendors, what are the capabilities and what is the best way to use. Because I don't know, in UK market, you have Clearbank, you have Modular Finance, a lot of vendors. And from marketing standpoint, they say almost exact things like we can help you to build the solution, like with the digital banking rails or whatever. And that's one of the initiatives that we have in our company. We actually building and starting to build the community, which is called Fintech Garden, where we're going to educate people and share as much as possible real information about the vendors, how to best cook them, like how to make sandwiches and what are the pros and cons and what models that are working. Because as an expert, you see that certain parts, they're not really visible to outsiders, but they affect your business model, like how you can generate money, how it will affect your business, and putting it in the form that easy to digest and understand will help to the market a lot. That because I was running kind of the similar problem in 2018 when I was building the Challenger bank completely from the scratch in UK, dozens. And I was researching a lot of vendors and we had conversations with them. And it wasn't really clear until you executed what is the difference. And right now, from all those years with the experience, I have more visibility. Like if I'm researching new vendor, then I can understand, okay, this thing might work because on the market it exists. This thing, they say it, but it's not really technical possible. So it's more marketing. Let's explore, see how it will progress, but we will not put a lot of expectations from there. So, and I think this is something that is missing on the market. There is no truly voice was explaining you the difference and saying what is possible or what. Because a lot of, if you go to the market right now, everyone is AI driven, everyone is doing really big scale, but it's not because scalable products that works for the mass market takes a lot of money. And not everyone has a lot of history or the budget. So certain things can be done, certain things cannot be done, but no one is telling you. Like for me, I really like the science approach, and there is a really nice guy, Karl Popper. He has the specific way how the knowledge is measurable, like scientific knowledge, and you cannot say that something is true. There is no data or knowledge like that. The only thing that it can say is that something doesn't work. Like you cannot really decline the speed of the light. You cannot really make sure and approve that it works. You only can find a way to say that it doesn't work. And the same way with the vendors. Everyone is saying that everything is working, but you should check what doesn't work. And that will give you the better understanding, like what I cannot do with this vendor. And then it will make me much clearer. If I'm building this banking rails, what is not possible there with this, like this provider? Can I have the multi-currency accounts? No. Okay, that's a limitation. Can I do real-time transfers on or dispatch the transfers on the weekends? No, because the Rails is closed. It's not real-time. So lots of things. What it can do gives you a really good overview. What is the thing?
And you mentioned it's called Fintech Gardens. Is that what you're going to launch? Is that the name?
Yes. Yeah. Fintech.garden. That's the domain.
How would people access that? Like, tell me, or is it
It's just a community. It's just a community. The domain is there. We are building right now the public interface, the articles, the knowledge base. Right now, it's more beta version, but we are going to launch it this fall.
Oh, amazing. Please do stay in touch about that and let us know when you've launched it, because I'm sure we can like link it to this episode, because I'm sure people would be listening to this and be like, oh, I want to check this out.
Nice. Thanks.
You're welcome. You've given so much amazing advice, Igor. I just have to ask, is there anything else you would advise anyone who's looking to work in this space at all that they have to know?
Another thing which I see, which is different right now in fintechs, is it's more about software engineering, but it affects the industry. As I said, industry a little bit working like in own neighborhood. Like everyone knows everyone. It's moving. A lot of startups there, but like as the whole industry. And I think like another big process, which we'll see in decades, like maybe next decade, something like that, it will become more open sourced because all the solutions, like if you're building, and that's the process with the baking the sandwiches. If you take in the bread, you don't know what are the components or ingredients that it's made from because you have vendors, they have own software. It's made somewhere there with the people that you never know, and you don't know how it's managed, how it's delivered, how it will affect your business. Because uh, even like the with the real situations that we have in our projects, because there is a licensing and you are limited with the certain functionalities in your projects. For instance, there is a licensing which is called PCI DSS, which means you cannot work with the cards. You cannot store specific information on your end because it's customer private financial information. And we have a vendor. We are working the way that they're not giving up the card full plans, like a 16 numbers, but giving some kind of handler or token which we operate with. And at certain moment, they started to send us the full pans of the cards. And we are storing this information, which means we are breaking the regulations. And we cleaned up the information. We made sure that our license is secure. We understand how it affects, how to deal with those situations. But it at that moment, it triggered me that we're not in control over that product that is providing us the functionality. We don't know who and when and how modified the product. And I think that's a lack of visibility, what's inside of other things. And that's what I really see that fintech will see in next decade, open sourcing and growing the ecosystem where you know how it's made from, how it will affect your business, how it will work for your business. Because right now you're integrating black box to black box, and I think it should be changed.
I'm literally learning so much from you, Igor. Honestly, thank you so much for sharing everything. I would like to ask you one more question. Do you
Sure.
have any motivational words for anyone who's not confident enough to take the leap, or has an amazing idea, or is currently working by themselves and would like to branch out? Any advice for someone who might be inspired by your story?
Yeah, do the things that works because it sounds quite simple, but it's so hard to make sure that you're building and the things, it doesn't matter which things, like, is it software, is it business, is it teams, but it should work and defining what it means works. It's hard, but when you see it, you see it. And you know that the things are actually working and delivering and making someone more happy, more efficient, and you will see that.
I love that. Do what works.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. Honestly, as I said, this space is so scary to me, especially because I don't know much about it, but I really appreciate you going through it all with me and explaining it to a 5-year-old, which I'm now going to live by the way.
Cool, cool. I'm glad. Thanks for that.
Thank you.